Anyway, call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any members of the public who would wish to address the board?
Hi, I'm Allison Brigham.
Very good.
And
Usually we have a microphone here someplace. So,
I'm asking a question that I asked earlier in the Ed committee. And Mr. Durfee didn't have an answer at the time. He said perhaps Mr. Polkeen would have an answer, or an idea. I'm just curious, as we were talking about the principal search, the last information that was shared with us from Laura is that she was going to remain in her position as interim principal through the semester, at the end of the first semester. And as we approach that point in time, things will be reevaluated to see how we're going to move forward. So I was curious if we had any more information on that process, or like, is it when that those discussions start going? Is it dependent on what candidate, what comes in for candidates? Just a little clarification on that as well.
So we answer something,
Yes.
I want to follow protocol.
yeah, no, but your address was the superintendent.
As it stands right now, Laura is the principal through the end of this first semester, but she and I will review that and discuss how long that will last. But it isn't linked to the screening committee's action, because the intent is not to bring that candidate in before July 1st, but no decision's been made yet for beyond January.
Very good. Are there any other comments from the public before we go?
Yeah, mine's just real quick. So we're standing here just for a minute as Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. I made the corrections in the last presentation we made with making sure that the Mount Anthony data was the same on both pages. So I brought new sets of data.
Laura, just so that people know what you're doing, why don't you explain?
Yeah, just from our presentation at the last board meeting, there was an error between the Mount Anthony SBAC data at the beginning and then in the middle, and that's been cleaned up. So I'll just keep copies here and you can pick them up at the end.
Very good. Is that information available to the public, and if so, how?
We presented it publicly last time, and if upon request, we could put the
Is it on the SCSU website?
It is not on the SCSU website right now, no.
Okay, will it be, or what would a member of the public have to do in order to get a copy of those results?
They could call central office.
Okay?
Yep, and request it.
All right. Very, very good. All right, we can move on then to finance. The treasurer's report. Do we accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Budget status report is for your information. The ExxonMobil grant was in there, I think it's about $500.
It is
$500.
Split between math and science.
For math and science. We've had this grant before, we're very appreciative of it, but the board has to vote on, or make a motion to accept.
I move we accept. Second.
Second, do we have any discussion?
Just, I don't think it was mentioned, but it seems like it was Martin's Mini Mart that reached out to ExxonMobil and asked for it, just from at least the documents I just wanted to mention. Make sure that was mentioned.
Would you make that a little bit clearer in case they missed it on the...
Yeah, well, at least it appears from the document that we got in terms of accepting it, that the request or the submission came from Martin's Mini Mart on Main Street, probably before the high school. Everyone else knows more about that.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Once again, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? One other thing about the budget process has begun. The business office at Central Office is particularly working on the SBSU budget, which is one of the major factors in our budget, so that can be included in each individual district as it works on its budget. But Renee has been very clear that she wants to, as soon as she gets some more information from the state which he hopes to be able to get this Friday, we will set up a series of meetings where the Finance Committee, or any board member, or any member of the public can join in the process as we review the budget. It's in the works. Okay, consent agenda, we need a motion, Graham?
So moved.
We have a second. Any,
Yes, second.
second, any discussion on any of the items in the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Go down to the approval of the support staff contracts. Leon, do you want to say anything?
We have Nick Dodd here.
Oh, sorry, good.
Say me. Go ahead.
Nick works in the Human Relations Office at Central Office and has been influential in helping settle both the teacher's contract and the support personnel contract.
Now, you had a summary online with all the things.
This is what it's saying.
This is what it's passing out.
So what we're
Okay,
passing
well,
around is just an overview of the changes that occurred from the current contract to the new one, so this should make it fairly easy to understand what we did, in the hopes that you all will, vote to ratify it. So the overview shows that we settled a 2-year contract, so through June of 2019, which is consistent with the teacher's contract, over concerns.
Do you mind just stepping towards one of the microphone, please? Thank you.
Yeah, just over concerns of, uncertainty about where it will be 2 years from now relative to health insurance, things of that nature. It does include retroactive pay increases back to July 1st, so if ratified, we will be making retroactive payments for all ESP employees back to that date. The big item was health insurance. As you may know, the health insurance plans that we currently have will no longer exist as of December 31st of this year. So as of January 1, we had to negotiate how to contribute to 4 new plans. So we will continue with the current plans and their current cost sharing through the end of this calendar year. And beginning January 1, the employers will continue to fund the premiums of all 4 of the new plans at an 86-14 split, 86 for the employer, 14% for the employee, which is the current split that we have. The biggest change to the health insurance plans is that all of them have out-of-pocket costs in terms of deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums that our current plans do not. What was negotiated was that those out-of-pocket contributions would be made towards out-of-pocket costs by the employer. The amount that the employer will contribute varies based on the plan, and you will see that there are 4 plans: Platinum Gold, Gold CDHP, and Silver CDHP, and the respective amount that the employer will contribute towards the out-of-pocket for those plans. What you'll note is there's a bullet that says, depending on plan enrollment choices, this should remain cost neutral to the district. So the way the contributions from the employer are arranged, essentially regardless of how employees enroll, it will remain cost neutral to the district, meaning it's not going to cost the districts any more than it does today, and in fact, it won't cost the employees any more than it does today. There are 2 of the 4 options that are less expensive than their current plan options. So that's good news. On to salaries. What was negotiated was a step plus a 2.25% increase, which came out to approximately a 3% overall increase, which is consistent with the teacher's contract. That is for both years. So 3% overall new money increase for both years. And then 2 smaller changes, one to the overtime section. This is actually a correction to previous language that was in the contract that was somehow accidentally removed. And that was that overtime pay will be paid for employees who work more than 30 hours per week. It was previously 35. And then it changed to the bereavement time to mirror the language in the teacher contract, so that employees now receive 5 work days rather than 5 calendar days in the event that they lose particular family members. So that is a summary of the changes. Does anyone have any questions or want any clarification about anything?
No, I just wanted to say that, that it was a good working relationship with the ESP and the committee to go through and get all of these things. A lot of things that are not here were workplace type of environmental things that were discussed. and looked out and reviewed and made sure it was clear and understandable in terms of our procedures, how things were taking place within the HR department or within the schools and so forth along that line. So that was the first part, that before we got into medical and all this other stuff, that we cleared up a lot of those things, and that was a real good thing.
Has the association voted on this?
Yes, they have.
They have ratified.
And they have ratified.
And we're bringing it throughout this month to all the individual boards.
Very good. Are there any further questions of Nick on this? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good. Congratulations, Leon. Everybody that worked on it? Great. Look at that. Okay. Policies, carrying on. Education Committee, Dave?
The Education Committee met just prior to this meeting to hear from teachers and staff on any thoughts they had on qualifications or skill sets, et cetera, that they'd like to see in the candidates for the high school principal. So we had some good information, helpful comments that Leon and I will pass along to the screening committee, which meets tomorrow, as it happens. And we'll share that feedback, and that will be incorporated along with feedback that's hopefully going to come tomorrow from the public at large. There's a session scheduled for 6:30 at the high school tomorrow in the auditorium to ask for the community to contribute the same kind of information. So that was it. That's what we discussed tonight.
Very good. Any questions? Most of you were here at that meeting, so once again, I'd like to emphasize the fact that there is a meeting scheduled for 6:30 tomorrow evening at the high school gymnasium, where the committee, whose responsibility is to advise the superintendent on the candidates for the principalship of the high school, where they are looking for input from anybody to help them make the right decision. So that's at 6:30 at the high school tomorrow.
It's an engagement, and it's a listening forum. We're just listening. So that's all the board we want to do, is just listen to anybody that has something to say from the public. That's all.
Well, I just want to be clear, who's going to hire the new principal? Is it going to be the people that are going to be in the audience, or is it going to be this board?
Well, what happens, generally, what happens is that this committee will review the candidates, then they will make a recommendation to the superintendent as to what candidates he should review. Then it is the superintendent's responsibility to present to the board his choice on candidates. The board then has the responsibility of accepting or not accepting his recommendation. That's my understanding. If you're still alive, we'll that's the way we'll do it. Good. That's the best thing to do. Are there any other questions? Fran, is that
Yeah, it's good enough
okay?
for now.
Yeah. All right. Administrative reports. We can start off with Laura.
So I want to start, and I know that Scott's going to talk a little bit about PLPs, but this is the year that the law says that PLPs, or personalized learning plans, have to be in place for all 7th through 12th graders by November 30th, and I'm very proud to say that between the two buildings, we're in great shape. In the last 6 months, I can speak for the high school, it's been an incredible group of staff members that have created the process which we've described to you, and today we had a session to ensure for the most part that the drafts were complete. So we wanted to share that with you because we want to be in compliance with that piece of the law. Our next steps for that committee are, as we look at the second half of the year, are to provide opportunities for students to reflect, which are already built into the structure of the PLPs, and then to look at how to include the parent or guardian in the process of reviewing the PLPs. And the goal is that every student will have an opportunity to talk with an adult. We spent the day today as a faculty looking at our multi-tiered systems of support, specifically around behavior minors, which is looking at behaviors that we might see on a daily basis. And then we worked in small groups to address what are some strategies that we could use to deal with those minors. Some examples are cell phones, you do when they appear in your classroom. Looking at the issue of homework. So it was a great afternoon of collaboration between peers, and we walked away with a list of ideas that we'll share with each other. On December 6th is a half day for students, and during the afternoon, if I flip back to the proficiency-based learning piece, the high school is going to spend an hour as a whole faculty, again, as we make that shift in thinking, again, coming into compliance with Act 77. Our focus right now in conversation is about the graduation requirements, and this particular session will be around what does evidence look like, and so that answers the question, how will we know if a student has it? What will we be collecting? We'll spend a little bit of time also focused on science and the shift in the next generation science standards, and departments will also have time then to go back and do individual work in regards to their proficiency scales. Mr. Payne and I were part of a team that participated in a community luncheon on Monday. Our goal is constantly to educate our community about the shift to proficiency-based learning. So Bennington College offered a site for us to host a luncheon with some of our local organizations that support our students. So we had Tutorial Center and Center for Restorative Justice, Sunrise, UCS. We had Bennington College students there, Jennifer Wells from the high school, Chris Mayer, student from the high school, Amy Moriarty from the middle school, and a group of counselors as well from the high school. Nancy Vanderbilt, Katie Place, and Eric Karen attended as well. The superintendent, the assistant superintendent attended. We had this collaborative luncheon, which was great. It was nice to have a site, and the goal is to do that 3 times this year to talk about this shift in thinking. So we look forward to continuing to share as we build our multi-tiered systems of support, and we also work on building our proficiency-based learning system. So those are just some updates.
Thank you. Laura, sometime I would be interested, and maybe I should direct this to Dave Durfee and the Education Committee, but I'd like a better understanding of our literacy program at the high school, in particular in connection with the middle school. What concerns me is that we have a number of students entering the high school whose literacy skills are not where we would like to see them. And I'm interested in the coordination that takes place for those students that are leaving the middle school coming in. And at the same time, Tim, I would like to see that going from the elementary schools into the middle school. And be sure that we are working on a continuum so that the problems that are, the earlier we can address the problems, the better it is. And if they can be identified at the elementary school, as they come into middle school, we can work on them, and then if they're not taken care of at that point, we can go to the high school. But it's not a thing that I expect you to do tomorrow, but I would like to have some indication as to how we are handling that whole area of literacy.
Right.
Because if they don't have that basis, it's going to be a tough time. Okay, we can go.
Tim.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
One question. Sometime I would like to have a better understanding of how PLP is actually working and leading to meeting graduation requirements.
I'm making a list. So that would be another great conversation that we could do a whole piece on. That would be something we look forward to, because that's a piece of the shift is how they do work together, and that's part of our own shift. Is they are meant to work together, and so documenting how they're working towards the graduation requirements in the PLP is one of our goals.
Are there any other questions for Laura?
Well, just that the graduation requirement policy, you're gonna have to help, and some others are gonna have to be in on making that change, and I don't know whether it's gonna be policy or whether it's gonna be education, in terms of making sure we look at what we have now and then what we have for the future coming out when you talk about graduation along that line, with that, the letter grade versus proficiency and so forth. So that policy needs to be updated.
Yes.
Okay, if there are no other questions, move on to Tim. Excuse me?
Number 8.
Oh, that was high school.
You're B.
What's that?
You're B.
I see that now. Sister Mary would be proud. October 23rd, I just wanted to let folks know, they may have seen it in the paper. I want to thank Ms. Powers and her 7th grade class. Now they were 6th graders when they originally did the fundraiser, but they were able to bring a internationally known slam poet, G. Yamazawa, to this school and perform in this space. And perform an open mic session, and then also have students present their work. And the room was packed, and it was really amazing. Lots of different kids in here. He was very engaging. This poet was supposed to visit us in the spring, but through a series of airline delays didn't make it. So I appreciate the teacher's persistence and the kids' energy for when he came. They did a nice job. He was really excited. He never performed in a middle school before. He said he's found the experience great, and he has offered to come back in the future with other artists. So we look forward to that. Just a quick question or a quick follow-up. Laura talked about she and I did a presentation on Monday, but we also had a presentation here last night with Melissa Senecal, and we had a nice crowd of parents come out in preparation for the end of trimester 1 at the middle school, which is December 1st. We gave a presentation on how to interpret the new standards-based report card, and it has quite a few changes in it. Maybe not so much for elementary school parents, but for parents who are used to a more numerical system. Had a nice discussion. Parents were really great, and that connects to our next session, our 4th session in January, which Laura talked about, and we'll be putting out more information for that as well. That next one will take place in the high school. But it was nice to see the crowd. We appreciate folks coming out. November 28th and 29th, which is the week after Thanksgiving. I know we're going to be in the rush of the holiday season, but the 28th is the chorus concert and 29th is the band concert. So if folks would like to come and see that, the performances are in the gymnasium. The kids do a really nice job, and it's kind of a festive thing, so we encourage folks to come. It's usually very well attended, so feel free to join us. I've already told you the first is the end of trimester 1. For moms and dads, there has been a little bit of changing of the school calendar, so just a reminder that the 1st, which is a Friday, and the 6th, which is a Wednesday, is a half day at the middle school. So kiddos will be coming home earlier than usual. Another point on change of hours, a robocall was sent home today. It was the first of many attempts to communicate with the community, but the operating hours at the middle school will be changing as of December the 4th, which is a Monday. It's also the first day of trimester 2. The building will now be opening at 7:30 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. This is, our hope is to align better with what teachers' hours are so we can provide appropriate supervision. And it also moves us closer to what we originally started when we went to the 8 o'clock start, and that is not having kids getting up at the crack of dawn to show up at school in a zombie-like state. So tonight is a robocall. It'll go out on Facebook. And then we had a conversation today. I assume a mailing will go out and a couple other venues that we'll be looking at, including our big sign on the hill, just reminding folks that starting on the 4th. The 14th and 15th of December, these are all days before we'll get back in front of the committee. Parent conferences, we do host parent conferences here at the middle school for grade 6. So folks who are familiar with that. And also on the 12th of December, Diana Malkin, this goes to the chair's question. She is the literacy coach that we are able to work with this year thanks to a school improvement grant through the state of Vermont. She will be here next Tuesday, but also on the 12th. She is helping us do those things you're concerned about. You know, what is your program at the middle school? How are you helping identify kids who need the extra help? And what help are you providing for them? She has organized a work group within the school, but she's also hosting a class, a year-long class for teachers. 25 teachers have signed up for that course. That's out of 55 instructional staff. We were really proud of that number. and they meet for 2 hours once a month after to learn about how to teach kids to read more effectively. So it's been a good group, and Diana will be back next week to join us, and we're very excited. She's been great.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any questions for Tim?
Question about the change in the business hours at the school. Then?
Yeah.
So, and my question is informed by what I recall as a parent, and knowing what time the bus stops at our house and what time it gets to the middle school.
Sure.
And I believe that bus I'm thinking of gets to the middle school at about 7:20.
So those times are going to be adjusted. What they call the anchor times with the buses, when the bus starts and run, are all going to be pushed back.
So does that
the
mean
buses-
that all buses will be, all the schedules will be adjusted somewhat?
Yeah, but there shouldn't be a bus arriving at the middle school before 7:30.
Okay. Then, okay.
Actually, what we're doing is, I'm going to be holding the bus company to what the wording that's already in the contract about when they can start their runs, when they can drop off. The contract has start times and how early before, and it varies by grade level, how early those students can be dropped off at the school. So yeah, it's not going to just have an impact in middle school. We're meeting with elementary principals tomorrow, because it's going to have an impact on all. But it's been a real challenge for Tim that he's being generous here for him dealing with students coming to the school before he has staff on duty to deal with it. So it has to happen, but it is going to be an adjustment. We understand for some parents who are going to see, and that's why we're starting to roll the message out before for drop-off times.
Are there parents that drop off students?
I have students arriving as early as 6:45. First bus arrives at 7:07.
Currently.
So when that happens, what are they, stuck outside? Are the
No,
doors
the
still
building is
locked?
currently opened at 7 o'clock and students are able to come in, but I'm relying on a mix of custodial, Abbey group, and 2 administrators to cover that, because teachers are contractually not
Yeah.
required to be in the
Understood.
building until 7:30.
I imagine there's parents that have to drop them off that early so that they can arrive at work on time.
I understand that, but it is consistent practice at the elementary level that buildings don't open until a half hour before first class. So, and the middle school has opened at 7 for as long as I've been here, and so kids have been arriving earlier and earlier, and it's creating a situation in the building.
Have you heard from any parents like those that might be?
Yeah, the first phone call went out today. But every single school bus arrives here prior to 7:30 at this point.
Yeah.
That's hundreds of kids being in the building before you have teachers at station to supervise.
So I'm speaking as the parent of a high school student who will also be affected because he rides the same bus.
Yep.
And I'm actually thinking, oh, maybe we'll all sleep in an extra 10 or 15 minutes, which would be great.
That would be a benefit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I don't have to be at work at 7, so
Yep.
I realize that for some it wouldn't be.
Understood.
Well, we certainly wish you the best luck. When does this program begin?
Monday, December the 4th.
December the 4th.
We will do our very best to communicate that early and often to the community.
Very good. Any further questions for Tim? Very good. Our student representative, Scott?
So my report this week is I just wanted to touch back on a few things that I kind of, or month is that I said last month. Let me start off with the sports section here. Last month I reported back on 2 high school students that were outstanding in the cross country. There was Evan Page and Sarah Umflett. I just want to report back that they actually both placed very well in the state meet and then actually moved on to the New England meet, where incredibly they actually both placed within the top 25 male and female runners of the New England area. So congratulations to them. This year the wrestlers are shooting for their 30th state champion title in a row. Not only is this an incredible record, but if they win, the Mount Anthony Union High School wrestlers will also set a national record for most consecutive state titles. Our cross-country ski team this year will actually be hosting the Classic Ski State Championship at Prospect Mountain, which I don't remember that ever happening, so that's pretty cool. Last year, Tim Brown reported that there was an incident where a civilian watching one of our softball games was actually struck by a foul ball. That was due to a fence that was only 4 feet tall, but Tim proudly reported that the fence has been replaced with a 7-foot tall fence, so hopefully none of those will be happening anymore. The PLPs actually, like Ms. Boudreaux said earlier, today was the 3rd time this year that the students met earlier in the morning. Set up an hour and a half off in the morning so that the students can all engage in a PLP session where they get the work done and they dedicate that time. And actually I asked a lot of people, a lot of the students at the high school, and many of them are feeling that they're in a good spot for their PLPs to be done on time. I know personally I actually finished mine today, so that was nice. The play that I reported last time, Into the Woods, took place on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of November. And the drama department did a wonderful job on that. There was a very high turnout to the show. I actually went to 2 of the nights, and I can say that I've never seen the auditorium so full at a musical before. The play was extremely challenging for the students to perform, but it also touched on every emotion that makes a musical, really good. Overall, the cast performance made the show a have-to-see musical. Both cast did an amazing job, and I have yet to hear a single bad comment of it. Recently, actually the last 2 days, the Student Senate held a volleyball tournament to help raise money for just Student Senate actions. They help support our dances and stuff if we have low class money. The past 2 days, they did that. In previous years, the cost to enter a team tournament was actually $20. However, this year, the Student Senate decreased the price to only $6, which is $1 per person. The purpose of the tournament is not only to raise money to help the Student Senate, but to also allow students the ability to engage in a fun and social activity after school. And it was really successful. It was very successful. So.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Scott?
Was there a faculty team?
I actually didn't attend volleyball because I was a little preoccupied with work and stuff, but there usually is. Every year that I have participated in any tournament, whether it be dodgeball or volleyball, there's always a student or a teacher team.
Any other questions? Okay, we can move on then to the superintendent's report.
I'll be repeating a few things from said earlier, but first I want to talk a little bit about budget. Here's a letter for you from our governor. I think some of you might have received this already from your school board association. This went out yesterday, but the Superintendent's Association also received it, and they asked that we make sure that this is shared with all board members. It's 5 pages. I don't expect that you will read it tonight. It's really more background reading for as we enter into budget season. To give you a little bit of insight to what the expectations are from the governor's office as we set our budgets. As many have heard, the news is not good as far as the hole that we're starting in with budget planning. We've heard estimates that even a level funded budget could result in an 8 to 10 cent increase in the tax rate, and we know that that would not be something that the voters would support. So as we enter this, it's going to be a very busy December and January. So around January 25th, we need to have our budgets completed so they can be warned in time for the March vote. The SVSU is having a brief business meeting of the full committee next Wednesday, the 29th at 5 o'clock. That will just be housekeeping issues like the consent agenda that needs to be done. And then they will go into a budget meeting. So they will begin their budget process, which is critical, so we can get the assessment numbers for everyone else's budget. You'll be receiving an email from my administrative assistant to start to coordinate dates with Renee's office for when your budget meetings will happen shortly after that. So the 29th is the crucial start, and then the next crucial date for us is December 1st, and that's when the state tax commissioner should release the first round of numbers that we need to see what their estimates for what spending is, and we expect that number to be down from last year because of the deficit in the state ed fund. Act 46, we know that there was a vote last week. I have been informed that tomorrow at 10 a.m. there is a recount in Woodford. I don't know if you're aware of that. So our office was informed of that. So 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. That vote was 74 votes cast, 38 to 36, hand counted ballot. So I assume it's accurate, but there is going to be a recount. The next step for us, it won't affect so much this committee. When I was in panel earlier today, I gave them the guidelines for a Section 9 filing of Act 46, which is basically a submission from each school district on how they're going to meet the requirements of Act 46 by standing itself. So that, along with that, is due December 26th. So between budgets and that, it's going to be busy. I'll also mention tomorrow night the screening committee having a public engagement listening forum. As has been mentioned before, it's in the high school auditorium at 6:30. There were K-12 alerts. That's an email alert to all the email addresses that we have for middle school and high school parents. That went out last Friday on 11/13, one posting, and then it was public engagement listen for, and then they changed it up again for yesterday to make it look a little bit different, and that email alert went out to middle school and high school parents yesterday. And it's been on the website, and both, it changed so it looked different so that we get different attention. So I hope that is well attended, and I wish the search committee well in their endeavors. It is on School Spring. I've been informed tonight that there are some spelling errors on that, so I'll be speaking with HR tomorrow that we can pull that down off of School Spring and correct that. That is an embarrassment that shouldn't happen when you're, so thank you for pointing that out to us. And that there are applicants in there, but the pool is growing slowly, so I haven't specifically looked into it. I'm staying away from it until it closes and see what happens. Other than that, I need it is on the agenda, but I need a executive session.
We will, Nelson, sorry.
Yeah, I would let people know that we're holding our meeting on the 22nd for the SPSU, because there will be no meeting on the day before Thanksgiving.
Very good.
22nd or 20th?
No meeting on the 22nd, so it'll be a meeting on the 29th.
Are there any questions for the superintendent? Hopefully. Okay, we can move on there. I have no report. Any other comments that like to be brought up?
I have one question, and it might be for Laura. I was handed a field trip request form for the high school that needs a signature on it. Do you know about it? The field trip is 11/20, so it's in a few days to Champaign College, Barbara Ackerman.
It's on the agenda.
So it's on the agenda, so
Yeah.
the form, the notice is that it needs a signature, so if you did the consent agenda. Yeah, okay.
So I have a quick question about the field trips. When we have like 80 students going off to a museum, how many buses does that take to get them there?
I would say on that form, it depends where they go.
My signature's there, I just can't see it.
It's light. Yeah, I thought everything was on them. I looked all over, but along that line.
I'm sorry.
Are there any other comments you'd like to make? Move for an executive session, motion to adjourn to executive session, booked on BSA section 313, disciplinary dismissal action against a public officer or employee. That nothing in this subsection shall be construed to impair the right of such officer or employee to a public hearing if formal charges are brought.
Will we be taking
Yes, we will. We'll be coming back to take a formal action after the executive session. So we will now adjourn to.
I'll move.
And I asked the chair, the board commission to invite in HR manager Nick Dodd.
All those in favor?
Third.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. A motion, please?
Yes, the move to terminate the employment of, Jim, can you pronounce the name?
Christine Keklek.
Terminate the employment of Christine Kecklock upon the recommendation of the superintendent.
And effective what date? Was it?
Today.
Effective today, correct.
Effective today. Do we have, Richard's gone, we'll.
No, Rick, he's right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is blend in. I hardly have to see.
You become invisible.
Are there any questions on that? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Need a second.
Opposed, or,
Do a second
Need a
on
second.
third.
do we get a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second, third, fourth.
Fourth. All those in favor? Very good.